Hello, ambitious professionals. I'm Tegan Bartos, career strategist, speaker, and coach, and today we are going to discuss how to market your professional value. As a student, this may feel hard, but I'm going to show you all of my current professional tricks to making your resume stand out. So let's start with the basics. What is a resume? A resume is a professional marketing document. It must capture the reader's attention in about 6 seconds. Its goal is to land the interview. Content is king and formatting is queen. You never get a second chance at creating a first impression. More often than not, your social media or your resume is going to be your first impression. So let's work together to make it a good one. Think of yourself as the product and your resume as an advertisement. Think of your favorite product. Does that brand or product advertise to itself, or do they make it about you? Nike, for example, makes you feel like their shoes can make you fast, cooler, or whatever it is that gets you to buy it. But that ad makes you believe the product can solve for whatever it is that what your needs are, and that's exactly what your resume should do for its reader. So your resume isn't really about you. It's about what you can do for your employer. It should focus on what the employer needs to know. Let the employer know what you can do for them, how you improve their company or team, how you will make that company money or save that company time, and will you keep the customers happy? When writing your resume, you must not only show the skills that you have, it must also demonstrate the success of using those skills. So at school, you get tons of hands-on learning, so this is going to be easy, and I'm about to show you how. So oftentimes, figuring out what you want to add to your resume is the most challenging. But remember I said I'm going to make it easy. Just remember, you're the product, and your content should tell the employer why they should buy the product. You want to use accomplishment and action verbs to start your sentences off and focus on your accomplishments. You want to make it as relevant as possible to the role that you're applying for. So use keywords from that industry. You want the document to be visually appealing and compatible with applicant tracking software systems. You want to quantify wherever you can. So instead of saying you completed hands-on carpentry training, say you completed 800 hours of carpentry training. So that shows exactly what your experience is, how much experience you have, what your scope is, whatever it may be that you're quantifying. But you want to be succinct. That means to make every word count, to keep it short. So to be honest, resumes are written kind of weird. We use first person implied, so omit or leave off any I's, me's, or my's. They're also written telegraphically, so try to limit the amount of A's, ands, and ofs. And then of course, you want to avoid any fluffy or pretentious language. So anything that's subjective that you can't prove, it's just best to leave off. Okay, so that's the basics of writing a new graduate resume. Honestly, that's the basics of writing an executive resume. But let's keep it about you. Think back to the past, or even maybe right now when you applied to a job. You know, you go on the website, upload your resume, and then the application kind of gets filled in, or maybe the sections even got filled out incorrectly. Then you get an automated response saying that your application's being reviewed, or sometimes you don't hear any type of response. But then after you hit submit, you apply to the role, you hear nothing, crickets. You hear absolutely nothing. You get no interview, you get no job. And that's because you only have a 2% chance of landing a job through applying online, because most people don't know about applicant tracking systems. So when you upload your resume and the application for the most part is filled out, that's filled out by a software called ATS, applicant tracking software, but a lot of people call them applicant tracking systems. So an ATS is a type of software application that recruiters and employers use during the hiring process to collect, sort, scan, and rank job applications they receive for their open position. So when you applied online, you uploaded your resume into an applicant tracking software. So if your resume didn't have what the ATS is looking for, a recruiter may have never even seen or took the time to look at your profile. So there are infinity ways to format your resume, but for most students, there's a similar order that you go in. So to get the most bang for your buck, you want to put the important information at the top of your resume and the less important information towards the bottom of the resume. And you want to keep this content inside the document itself. So do not use a Microsoft Word resume template. Do not put content inside of a table, inside of a chart, inside of smart art, because applicant tracking systems can't read that content. So there are workarounds. But if you're not a professional resume writer, most likely your resume will end up in ATS purgatory. If somebody's applying to a role and there's 3,000 other applicants, it's not practical for a recruiter to read every single resume. They're going to sort their applicants by what the applicant tracking system said. They're not going to go through and open up every single individual resume to look at it. So you want to create your resume from scratch, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So remember, we said content is king. Your content is what is going to get you the interview, but you won't get an interview if you forget to add your contact information. You wouldn't believe how many resumes I get with no contact information. And if you're one of those to change your numbers often step, you want to get a call back from employers, and employers keep applicants on file. So maybe even if you weren't the first choice, but they hired someone and that person doesn't work out, well, there's a chance that they'll call you back down the road. I see it all the time. But if your contact information is bad, how are they going to reach you? So for safety reasons, you want to keep your street address off your resume. So your resume is not a legal document. It is a professional branding tool. You can add your street address to the application itself because that's protected, but on your resume, all you need is city, state, and zip code. And then obviously you want to put your active phone number on there, and you want to keep that phone number a good working number. And then you want to add a professional email address, and you want to make sure you're checking that email address daily. And then also you want to add your LinkedIn URL. So when that employer does company research on you, you direct them to your professional page versus forcing them to Google you, and God only knows what'll pop up, especially if you don't take your social media cleanup assignment seriously. So this information is at the top of your resume. It does not go in the header. Applicant tracking systems cannot read information that are in the header, so put it straight on the Microsoft Word document. So see, here's an example of the contact information being right on the document versus being in the header. So then next up, you want to showcase your relevant experience. At the top 1/3 or 1/4 of your resume is critical real estate. Thanks to Ladder's eye tracking study, we know that recruiters take on average 7.4 seconds to review a resume. So that means you need to immediately prove you're the right person for the job. So after your name, you want to put whatever type of credential that you have. If you're a CNA, make sure you put CNA next to your name. You want to then spell out that that's the type of job you're looking for. So in this example, a certified pharmacy technician. And then you want to add in some information to showcase your relevant accomplishments. Maybe it's a brief branding statement, recognized for ability to effectively dispense and package prescriptions with utmost accuracy, provide superb customer service, ensuring client retention and loyalty. And then immediately after that branding statement, showing your accomplishments, showing your relevant skills to this job. You got your pharmacy technician's license recently. Your training include four weeks as well as training in the state-of-the-art pharmacy laboratory. So that's how you immediately make an impact on your resume. And then at some point on your resume, you're probably going to want to have a related skills list. So every single job description that you go through, you're going to have keywords and phrases in that resume, different things that are in that job description, different things that they want the candidate to know. So make sure that's listed somewhere on your resume. The easiest way to do that is just by adding a skills section. So if the job description calls for, understanding HIPAA and maintaining HIPAA compliance, it may be difficult to word that in a bullet point, but it's really easy just to list right there. And then that way, when that recruiter is skimming, they can see, oh, got HIPAA compliance, oh, got preparing prescription labels, oh, got customer service. So easy way to put your related skills on your resume that the job description calls for. So another section that's important on your resume is certifications, education, and potentially coursework. So you can list it in a variety of ways. Here's one example. So in some of the trades that you're potentially in, those certifications are going to be really important. If you don't have that certification, you can't do the job. And then a lot of employers are still going to know, okay, well, where did you go to school at? Where did you train to get that certification? And so for this example, the Navarra Institute, the relevant coursework included healthcare safety, healthcare privacy, fundamentals in rehabilitation, blah, 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 blah. But you also got training at Paul Simon Job Corps. So maybe you went through, depending on how long it took you to get into your clinicals, 80 hours of medical terminology, vital signs, HIPAA. So maybe for you, it might be 120 hours. But if you can quantify it. It shows that you've really been studying to become a CNA. And then you're also hitting in some of those keywords and phrases that the job description is going to ask for. Vital signs, HIPAA regulations, patient safety, medical records. And then wherever you got your high school, your equivalency, you want to have that because that's going to be a prerequisite to getting the job. So you want to make sure, even though it's implied, yeah, I have that. Well, you need to prove it and add it on your resume. You wouldn't be surprised how often education is left off. So you want to highlight your relevant experience first before any other type of experience. So if you've researched how to write a resume before, you might have learned, that there's different kinds of resumes, chronological or blended or whatever. So this is basically going to say, even if you're done at the Navarra Institute and you're currently working at Forever 21 or McDonald's or wherever it may be, you want to keep that first because when recruiters are skimming your resume, they're going to be scanning in the E or F format. So think of an E. They're going to, from the top to the bottom, look from left to right, left to right, left to right. But a lot of times recruiters only skim in the F format. So that means the information down at the bottom of the page, they're not going to go to the right. So you want your relevant information higher up than irrelevant information. So look at this content. Completed 40 hours of clinicals providing high quality patient care in a 67-bed facility. You're quantifying how many hours you did clinicals for, how many beds were in the facility, maybe how many patients you worked with. And then you're giving an example of feedback you received. Received exemplary or exceeds expectation rating on all performance reviews. Cited for interpersonal communication, teamwork, customer service, flexibility, and reliability. It's hard to get those soft skills in your resume, but this is a perfect example of how you can do it. Preserve patient dignity and minimize discomfort while carrying out duties such as diapering, bathing, feeding, and other daily living needs. So that's going to show you have that customer service, you have that empathy that it takes to really be a CNA. And then there's some other examples here that you can read. But basically, you want to start off with that action verb or that accomplishment verb. And then you want to explain, what action you took and why was it relevant? What are those results? So your additional experience. So if you have previous work experience, you do want to add that to show you've had some type of job before, but you want to make it relevant to the job you're applying for. So say you worked at Forever 21, provided compassionate customer service and accurate payment processing in a fast-paced location. Received 90% plus positive feedback and random customer satisfaction surveys. Go-to person for resolving customer complaints and employee disputes. So you want to word it in a way that makes it relevant to the job you're applying to. Maybe you don't really have experience that makes sense to elaborate further. Or maybe you have some volunteer experience that's relevant to the job that you're doing. So maybe you just list it out with no bullet points. Or maybe you do add some bullet points, just depending on what your situation is. No two people's resumes are going to look the same. So interests. So if you have volunteer experience or an interesting fact about yourself or involved with something cool, then add it. You know, the market is really competitive right now. And if you want to get into the top company, your number one pick company, then maybe you want to find a way to stand out, to make your story be a little bit more relevant. So maybe you volunteer with Meals on Wheels or volunteer at a soup kitchen, or you regularly listen to the pharmacy technician podcast. Maybe you want to add that. Or maybe something funny like interests, foods that are vehicles for hot sauce. So that's just like a catchy phrase. Chicago sports, go Cubs, and the LA Lakers, training dogs. So this interest section really isn't that relevant to the job, where this one is more relevant to the job. So you have to determine, is it something that's worth being on my resume or isn't? Oftentimes, if it's something funny like this or not really relevant to the job, I don't recommend adding it. But hey, if you're having a hard time finding employment and everything else is lining up, maybe you do want to try to make it a little bit more personal, because at the end of the day, they're going to have to work with you. And so if you add something that resonates with them on a personal level, that might be the difference on them selecting you or them selecting someone else. Okay, so that's a lot of information. And you may be thinking, okay, but now I have to write my own bullet points. How do I do that? So there's typically two different formatting suggestions on how to write your bullet points. So one example is the STAR method. So situation, task, action, result. The other method is the CAR method, challenge, action, result. You can use either of those to format your resume bullet points. But the easiest thing that I can think of to help you get started writing your own resume is by giving you a list of accomplishment verbs. Because at the end of the day, you need to prove your value. You need to prove why this employer should hire you. So if you're starting your bullet points off by things that you were able to accomplish, that's really going to set you apart from the crowd. All right, so now it's time to write. But don't worry, I have all of these trade resume example templates to get you started. So you can use those as your little friendly help, call it a cheat sheet, whatever you want to call it. But you can use that to get you started. But remember, customize it for you. Change those dates. Add your relevant experience. Make it your own. Change the color, change the logo, change the formatting, change the order that I have it in. Whatever it makes it so it's relevant to you and your experience. Remember, that's your professional branding document. It has to prove what an employer's return on investment will be if they hire you. So let's get to work. Good luck, guys.